Hello everyone, I'm Doc Hamels and welcome to our new series called Chautauqua Strong and Healthy. Today we're featuring Carey Skelton, who will be providing Eat Healthy, Be Active community workshops.
Hi, I'm Carey Skelton. Welcome back. I'm one of the registered dietitians at the Chautauqua County Office for Aging and a nutrition educator for the SNAP-Ed New York programs. This is our second workshop in a series called Eat Healthy, Be Active, Community Workshop Curriculum. Today's workshop is entitled Making Healthy Eating a Part of Your Total Lifestyle. If you haven't already received handouts to go along with this series, feel free to call Chautauqua County New York Connects 716-753-4582 to get a copy of these handouts. By the end of today's workshop, you will be able to identify 3 aspects of the nutrition facts label to help you make healthier choices in the foods that you are eating. You will be able to incorporate more of a variety of protein-rich foods into your day-to-day diet. And you will be able to learn 3 ways where you can shift from eating refined grains to eating more whole grains in your diet. As a reminder, the workshops are based on the Dietary Guidelines for Americans, and there's some main messaging that comes out. But the Dietary Guidelines for Americans, if you remember, I showed you this picture a few times in our last workshop, and I will be showing this picture to you again. This is called the My Plate picture, and it shows us our food groups. And today we're really going to focus on, and last time we looked at making half of your plate from fruits and vegetables. We still want you to do that, and on top of that, we want you to focus on the grain group and start eating more whole grains and shifting to having at least half of your grains from whole grains. So what is a whole grain? A whole grain is a grain that has 3 parts. When we look at a grain of wheat or corn or barley, it doesn't matter which grain it is, there are 3 parts to it. There's the outer bran shell, and then inside the shell there's the germ and the endosperm. The outer bran shell is this hard fibrous shell that gives us fiber in our foods, and it gives us a bunch of B vitamins, healthy variety of vitamins, right? The inside, that little piece of germ on the inside, has some more B vitamins, and it has fatty acids. Good, healthy, unsaturated fatty acids. And then the third part is the endosperm, and the endosperm is the carbohydrate and the calories of our grains. What manufacturers oftentimes do when we are eating things like refined grains. What are refined grains? That's our white pasta, our white bread, white rice. That is just the endosperm part of the grain. To get our full amount of nutrition, we want to eat the grains where all 3 parts are included: the germ, the endosperm, and the bran. Some of our foods naturally have all 3 parts. Barley. This is a grain that you can eat, and think about when you usually eat barley. Might be in a soup, right? But you can use barley the same way that you use rice as a side dish to any of your meals. Brown rice and wild rice are also whole grains that you can use in place of potato or white rice as a side dish. When I talk about the fact that you want to have half of your grains from whole grains, from meal to meal to meal, that doesn't mean you have to eliminate the white stuff, right? We like the way the white stuff kind of tastes. That's oftentimes why people gravitate to the white pastas or the white bread over the whole grain breads. But we want to get that extra nutrition from the whole grain. Whole grain pastas are a great substitution. Some people say, oh, I can switch to a lot of those whole grain things that you're talking about, but pasta I can't give up. Well, if you think about your entire day, maybe you had oatmeal for breakfast. That's a natural whole grain. For lunch, you had a sandwich on whole wheat bread. Now you had 2 of your 3 meals full of whole grains. It would be okay at dinner to go with regular white pasta. You could shop for a pasta that was at least 50% whole grain. How do you do that? How do you know whether your processed foods, like pastas and breads and crackers, are whole grain or not? Your packaging will tell you. You do have to be careful because sometimes manufacturers will put made with whole grain. And they oftentimes make that word whole grain a little bit bolder print. And the made with might be smaller print. So it might draw you in and you might think the whole product is whole grain. I caution you to make sure you're looking at your ingredient list to see whether or not a product is all whole grain or partially whole grain or made with whole grain. So how do you do that when you're looking at your packaging? I have a few examples here. Pasta. If you look at the ingredients, you're going to see on this particular packaging, it says durum semolina. The word whole is missing from that first ingredient. Ingredients are listed by weight. So whatever is there in the most amount is going to be listed first. The top 3 ingredients on your packaging are really the ones that the product is really essentially made from. So durum semolina, not whole. And what is durum? What is semolina? These are varieties of the wheat product. So we eat apples all the time, and there's Fuji apple, and there's Gala apple, and there's Rome apple. They're all apples, and they all provide us the same amount of nutrition, but they're different kinds, varieties. Well, there's different varieties of wheat out there, and that's just what those words are. They're still just wheat. The second ingredient is whole wheat durum flour. So this has partially refined grain and partially whole grain. If you look off to the side, this packaging says 54% whole grain. So it's at least half. So you're still meeting the recommended amount of whole grains when you're consuming a product like this. Some other cereals at breakfast. For example, we've got bran flakes and we have raisin bran. Bran flakes are going to be lower in added sugars compared to your raisin bran. But both the bran flakes in here are a whole grain. To cut back on those added sugars, like we were talking about in the first part of this series, you might want to add your own raisins or your own fruit to your bran flakes compared to buying it with it already in there. You see how these glisten, these little raisins glisten? They've been rolled in sugar. So to cut back on added sugar, just add your own fruit to your bran flakes. And that is a nice whole grain breakfast. Breadcrumbs. You can purchase 100% whole wheat. You'll see some products out there, crackers or breadcrumbs, and they may say wheat across the front of them. But if it does not say 100%, that doesn't necessarily mean that it is whole grain. Maybe wheat, but a refined grain, a refined wheat. When it says 100% whole wheat, you can be assured. And you can double check your ingredients. Here it says whole wheat flour as the ingredient. What are we going to do with our whole grains? How can we make that shift from our refined grain kind of side dishes that we are used to eating to incorporating some of these whole grains? There's a favorite whole grain of mine. It's a natural whole grain, and it's called quinoa. It's that Q word out there in the grocery store that you might not really know how to pronounce. It's Quinoa, quinoa. And quinoa is a natural whole grain. It has all three parts, the bran, the germ, the endosperm. And one of the great things that I like about quinoa is that it cooks as fast as white rice. Same ratio, 2 to 1, right? 2 cups of water, 1 cup of the grain, and it cooks in 20 minutes. Brown rice, wild rice, barley, these cook closer to 45 or 60 minutes. So you kind of have to plan your meals if you're going to incorporate one of these other whole grains into your meals. You can do a hot quinoa side dish or a cold quinoa side dish. One of the cold quinoa side dishes that I love in the summer is a quinoa salad. It can get big fast when you start adding ingredients to this. So I recommend making a batch of quinoa, especially if you're a household of 1 or 2. Make a batch of quinoa and separate it. And use half of it as a hot side dish to maybe your salmon or other meal. And add some curry and some coconut milk, and now you have this creamy curried quinoa. Great flavor, right? Take the other half of your quinoa dish that you've prepared and chill it. Save it for a meal later on in the week. And then add some color. Eat from a color of rainbows, right? So I would add some garlic, maybe a teaspoon or 2, the zest of a lemon and the juice of the lemon, and the olive oil. The garlic, the juice of the lemon, and the olive oil would be my base for my dressing for this salad. And then I would add maybe some cumin for some other flavor to the dressing. Chopped up onion, red onion or a sweet Vidalia onion in here with maybe any color pepper. Green pepper, red pepper, I have a yellow pepper. It's really whatever I have in the fridge at the time is what is going to go in this salad. Cucumber, black beans. I've done chickpeas in this salad too. Either one tastes great. I often like to take frozen corn right into my hot quinoa to chill it down so that you're not putting it into the fridge hot, or you don't have to wait so long for it to chill to add all the other ingredients, and then you can have your salad that much more quickly. So any color, red tomatoes, cherry tomatoes. Asparagus sliced up is great. A tip with asparagus, when you get it, the lower part of the stem can sometimes be woody, difficult to chew, right? If you just bend it, it will find that natural breaking point. And the woody part will just snap right off. And the rest of it is the soft, easy to chew part of the asparagus that you want to cut up and use in your recipes. I like to use it fresh or steamed, but fresh in a salad. I'll throw zucchini in this every once in a while if I have, again, whatever I have in the fridge, that's what's going in my salad. And it makes this beautiful, colorful salad that is a great full meal. You've got protein from the beans, you have your vegetables, you have your whole grain. It can be an entire meal or it can be a side dish. We have reviewed a few ways to make half of your grains whole grains. Can you think of a few ways to incorporate more whole grains in your diet so that you are making half of your grains whole grains? Let's talk about some protein options. When we look at the My Plate picture, it just says protein. It does not say meat, right? There are lots of different sources of protein that we can incorporate and include in our diet. And that's what they want you to know when you look at this picture, is that when we're putting protein on our plate, it can come from animal products, but then it can also come from plant-based foods, beans, nuts, seeds, fish, and seafood, right? Seafood has a great place as a part of protein in our diet. In fact, it's recommended for us to consume 8 ounces a week from seafood. That could easily be done if you have a can of tuna one day for lunch and a 4-ounce salmon fillet for dinner one night. You have your whole 8 ounces in for the whole week. The reason why we want to have a variety of protein in our diets is because if we focus more on the animal proteins, as a society, we generally do that. We think, oh, what are we going to have for dinner tonight? And oftentimes it's, oh, let me go see what meat I have in the freezer, right? And we go to the freezer and we say, oh, am I going to have roast or am I going to have chicken? And we plan our meal around meat as the center of our plate. But if we cut back on the portion of our meat or the frequency, how often we're eating animal products, meats in a week, this will help protect our heart. It will decrease the amount of saturated fats that we're eating. Did you know that there's this whole movement called Meatless Mondays, right? Meatless Mondays encourages us to eat, doesn't have to be meatless on a Monday, but it encourages us to eat our diet meat-free, animal-free, one day a week. And if you can eat meatless one day a week, it will reduce your risk of heart disease by 30%. That's a huge number for just making one day of the week plant-based, right? So by cutting back your portion, instead of having the steak hanging over both ends of your plate, that sometimes the portions can be so big, or switching and incorporating more plant-based proteins. I made lasagna for my in-laws one time, and I did half ground beef in the recipe and half ground turkey. Ground turkey is a lower fat animal product. So by switching to your leaner cuts, your poultries, chickens, turkey, you can reduce the amount of saturated fats in your diet. So I did half ground beef, half ground turkey, and I threw in a can of mashed up black beans. That was the protein layer of my lasagna. And then, of course, a low-fat. I used low-fat cottage cheese instead of ricotta cheese to cut the fat there as well. By incorporating more beans, nuts, seafood into your diet is an easy way to cut saturated fats in your diet. We have just reviewed a few ways to vary your protein routine. Can you think of a few ways to incorporate more seafood and plant-based proteins in order to vary your protein routine? Let's talk a little more about our nutrition facts label. In our first workshop, we talked about the nutrition facts label being a guide for looking at our total carbohydrates and looking for our added sugars. But there's a lot more to our nutrition facts label. And in fact, there are some changes that you want to take note of. They've increased the font size and bolded the serving size and the calories of the products. So now we know that in this particular product, there are 2 servings in this container, and each of those servings is 240 calories. So if we eat the entire container of whatever this is for, we would actually be eating 480 calories. This really just draws our attention to watching portion control, watching how much we're eating of the foods that we are purchasing. But I want to draw your attention to these percentage points over here on the side. These are called percent daily value. The percent daily value is based on our total calorie intake, or the average. The average amount of calories somebody should be consuming each day is about 2,000. Now that's not everybody. Some people should consume a little less, and some people consume a few more calories. But on average, we consume about 2,000 calories each day. And these percents tell us how much one serving of this product contributes towards your totals, your total carbohydrates, your total fats, your saturated fats, your salt, recommended sodium intakes. So these percent daily values are very helpful. And as a general rule of thumb, if it's 5% or lower, it's low in nutrition for that particular nutrient. If it's 20% or higher, then it has a lot of that nutrient in this serving of food. A lot doesn't actually mean good, and low, less than 5%, isn't always good either. It depends on the nutrient that we're talking about. So for example, if we're talking about fiber or vitamin A or vitamin C, we would want to see higher numbers. We want to eat more of those good, healthy nutrients. So we want to look for something that's 15 or 20% or higher. Fat, on the other hand, when we're looking at the percent daily value, we want it to be less than 5%. And the same with our sodium intake. We want that to be on the low end, less than 5%. But if we look at this and we look at the fiber, and the fiber is less than 5%, maybe we should look at a different product, right? And try to pick a different food that might have more of the good nutrition and less of the things that we want to limit and stay away from, like the added sugars and the saturated fats in our foods. Fiber. When we look at total fiber on our nutrition facts, it's a subcomponent of our total carbohydrates. So for your information, anything listed between total carbs and your proteins, those are a part of the total carbohydrate numbers. Dietary fiber, if it's a good source of fiber, it's going to have 3 or more grams of fiber in a serving, and that's really what you want to shoot for. This has 7 grams of fiber. It's got a great amount of fiber in it for whatever product it is that we're looking at. So as we're talking about making a shift to eating healthier for your life, we're talking about making these small changes or these shifts from the way you usually eat to a healthier, even if it's ever so slight, a healthier choice. And so we can look at all of the foods that we are eating, not just changing a recipe up here or there, but we can look at all of the foods that we are either buying in the grocery store or the way we're preparing our foods at home and make slight changes or shifts. That may be making a change from regular full-fat dairy to a lower-fat dairy product. That might be incorporating more plant-based proteins in your diet and cutting back on some of those animal proteins to help increase the amount of unsaturated fatty acids in your diet. It may be shifting from those sugar-loaded beverages to drinking water in a different way, adding some flavor to your water. It may be shifting from that ice cream snack in the evening to a fruit smoothie. This has been my daughter's recent favorite. And I'll just take a banana, maybe a date. I'll throw in a handful of spinach. She doesn't know it's there. And throw in some frozen fruit, just bagged frozen fruit from any of the grocery stores, or if I picked some fruit at a fruit farm last year, it's still in the freezer. Throw it all together and add some either milk or low-fat milk or water and blenderize it up, and it's a great snack. Shifting from your full sodium canned products to your low sodium canned products. No added salt vegetables, beans, low sodium soups. Shifting from potato chips to air popped popcorn that's low in fat, low in salt. It's a whole grain snack. All these small shifts create an overall healthier diet. And these are small shifts that you can make little by little and incorporate a new idea each week. Some people say, well, how do I get started in making some of these shifts to a healthier diet? And I would say focus on one change a week or one change for 2 weeks. Maybe one change in your diet every time you go to the grocery store. So if you're shopping once a week or you're shopping twice a month, maybe that's how often you make one small change in your diet. And those small changes make big differences over time. This has been an equal opportunity workshop. And I encourage you to tune in next time for our third workshop in the series for making quick, healthy meals. Nobody wants to slave all day in the kitchen to create a healthy, good-tasting meal. So next time we're going to talk about how to do it and cut corners in time, but still have a lot of healthy options in the foods that we are eating. I hope that you've enjoyed today's lesson and that you're able to think of a few ways to make some small changes that incorporate half of your grains as whole grains and a few ways to vary your protein routine.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of Chautauqua Strong and Healthy. Look for other editions in this series on Access Chautauqua on Channel 1301 or Access Chautauqua's Facebook page and also on YouTube. I'm Doc Hamels, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us today. We know the healthy choice isn't always the easiest choice, but small changes can make a big difference. Start today by getting involved with SNAP Ed New York. This program is free for those who qualify or receive SNAP benefits. We want to help you save time, save money, and eat healthy. Learn how SNAP Ed can make a difference in your life. For more information and to find your local program, visit snapedny.org. This material is funded by USDA's Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. SNAP. This institution is an equal opportunity provider.
This has been an equal opportunity workshop.